All right, now we're gonna add a button over here, but first let's name our project so it's easier for us to save it later on. So we'll just name the project, guess the number. All right, and now let's add a button over here underneath this text. So that text is saying what the name of the game is, and now we're gonna add a button. You can just go over here and search button. Let's use this one, that looks like a nice one. You put it over there, and we wanna add a little text on the button that says start. So what you can do is you can basically just make sure you selected this sprite, go over here on customs, and you can do the same thing. You can just add a text box on top of it and say start, and make sure you centralize it. Just put it there. Very nice. All right, so make sure you save that and go over here back to code. And also let's make sure the start button is at the center of the page. So let's just put X and the Y to 0, 0. Right, and then take the other sprite and make sure that it's visible so it's a little bit further up above it. There we go. That looks good. And we can just set the X to 0, I guess, so it's a little bit more centralized. And let's put it to 50. There we go. That looks nice. All right, so that's going to be essentially our starting menu, right? We've created a game menu here where when our game is run, it basically tells you the name of the game. And we have a start button. So whenever you click the start button, the game starts. All right. Now let's go ahead and program the event where we actually press that button and the game starts. So first of all, obviously we need to have this thing over here when the flag is clicked, essentially when the program is run. First, we need to make sure we show everything here. All right. So we just start with show. And the reason why we have to put this here, you might say, well, isn't these always showing? Well, remember, when we click on the start button, we want this to go away. So eventually we're going to have to put in a hide command, right? Which is why we need to make sure that every time we run the program, we go back to the default, which is everything is being shown. All right, so just put that there. And next up, we're going to go ahead and use a new one. We're going to drag and drop that over for the button, and then we're going to go ahead and use a new event called when the sprite is clicked, right? So anytime the start button is clicked, we're going to trigger something, right? And what we're essentially going to trigger is we're going to trigger some sort of a broadcast, essentially a way for us to inform every single sprite in the game that, hey, the game has begun, right? Because it's when the button is pressed, we don't want to just perform an operation on the button. We also want to perform an operation on the text, and we also want to get the game going, right? So it's very important that whenever the button is clicked, we can send a broadcast to everything in the program. So that's essentially what we're going to do here. We're going to find a broadcast that says broadcast message, right? We're going to attach that to when the sprite is clicked, and we're going to set that to whatever message you want. Let's just say start game. Let's use that. All right. So essentially, when this sprite is clicked, we tell everything that, hey, we've started the game. All right. And now you can also do the same thing, saying when I receive that broadcast, right? And you can select it from here because we've already made that broadcast previously. When I receive that broadcast, what do we want to do? Well, we want this button to hide. And the same thing with the text. When we receive that broadcast, we want to make sure that text hides. So we're just going to drag and drop that and make sure that we copy this over here. So let's go ahead and try that. Let's just do a practice run. The game's running. When we click start, everything goes away. That's exactly what we wanted. All right. Now, one more thing that we want is, first of all, let's make sure we put that back there. There we go. One more thing that we want is to make sure that when we press the start button, we actually also start the game. Now, where are we going to program the game? We're not going to program it in any specific sprite because you don't have to always put all your coding on a specific sprite. You could also put it on the background where a lot of the background calculation and a lot of the processing is being performed. So you can just go over here to the backdrops. As you can see, you can just select that and just start putting some codes here. So again, we're going to go ahead and put this event saying when I receive the start game, when we receive that broadcast, then what do we do? Well, we want to make sure that we have some sort of a command asking for something, right? So for example, in this game, because it's a game about guessing the number, we want to ask guess a number between 0 and 100 and wait. All right. And that's essentially what we want to do. All right, so obviously there's a lot more that goes into this, and we're going to program that in the next video. But now every time I run the program, what is happening is that when I press this button, this thing comes up here saying that, hey, guess a number between 0 and 100. Right now it doesn't do anything, but we're going to program the functionality in the next video. All right, so just make sure that you got this so far, that when you run the program, you have this come up, this menu, and then when you press on the start, these two sprites go away, and this box comes up saying, hey, guess a number between 0 and 100. And then you have the option to guess a number. All right, so just make sure you have all of that going on so far. And join me in the next video where we're going to program all the functionality, and we're going to program essentially the way the game is going to operate, and essentially give us feedback based on what we're guessing, and tell us if we're getting closer, or if we're getting, not that we're getting closer, I guess, if we're at the number that we're trying to guess is larger or smaller than the number that we are currently guessing. All right, so join me in the next one for that.